Gold is up by $13.20 today. A little bit of economic news coming up later. But I said open phones in this fourth and final hour. 1-800-259-9231. We are live at prisonplanet.tv right now. Also, I've been telling the story all day, but I'm going to show it later in the hour. I was at my parents' house. I'm mainly an internet person. There's not a lot of newspapers and magazines around the house anymore. I read them all online, but I was rummaging through their stuff. And it's just every magazine, every newspaper, it has Barack Obama saving the earth, saving the Bill of Rights, saving the Constitution. And South Park last week did a piece making fun of it, and they're not even exaggerating. I mean, it's people just saying, all my problems are solved, Barack Obama is God. In fact, I want to show one of these on the document cam now. We'll show more later. And I literally dug around for about 3 minutes. This is just everywhere. I'm sure you're seeing this. In fact, mail them in to me at the mailing address on the website, and I'll do a whole show in the future just showing all the magazine articles and editorials where he's God. If you look at this shot, it's on the document cam at prisonplanet.tv. This is out of Newsweek magazine. There he is putting the Constitution with all these little pieces of tape, and he's putting the last piece in dutifully. He's got his tape, and he's in the Oval Office, and day one, he's putting it back together. Folks, this guy wants compulsory national service, gun control, disarming you. That's ripping huge pieces out of the Constitution. I mean, how much of this do we have to put up with? How much crap do we have to put up with? Well, I'm going to be exposing Mr. Obama. Not that he runs anything, but as the front man, how much they can get through on their agenda. I mean, I would love to be able to like Barack Obama, but, I'm sorry. I would have loved to have been able to like George Bush, but I'm about policies and what they actually do versus rhetoric. So there is your savior, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be going over that later in the hour. Right now, let's go ahead and go back to your calls. Pull my call list up here. Let's talk to Brandon in New York. You're on the air, Brandon.
Hey, Alex. How you doing today?
Pretty good.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on your show. I have been listening to you for quite some time now, and I would also like to thank you for opening my mind, sir. People like you that are actually doing greatness for the people in the United States, unlike the scumbag elites that are trying to control us. I'm actually talking to you today because I'm up here in New York at what is dubbed by the common people as Mission Control. We're a hub that basically monitors the Internet. And I found an article today that I think you would be really interested in. It's in the Los Angeles Times. And it's basically showing how there are different corporations such as AT&T, Comcast, Time Warner, Fairpoint. And what they're doing is they're actually putting a cap on the Internet and how much information you can actually bring into and from your ISP.
Yeah, no, that's getting rid of net neutrality. They're also going to restrict the number of sites you can visit. And people are emailing me saying I'm conspiracy theorying when it's admitted by them, and governments are saying they're encouraging ISPs and providers like Comcast and others and Time Warner to now shut people off. I mean, it's already happening.
It is. And there's Cyblock proxies, there's Cyvin proxies for reporting servers, log analyze servers. I mean, the general public should know. Anytime you're on the Internet, all those things are being recorded. Don't think that your ISP provider isn't looking into all the information that you're looking up. And also don't think that by them not putting a cap on it, that, if I sit here and listen to Mr. Alex Jones' show every day, that eats up 5 gigs of my Internet cap. If they close down my cap, does that mean I'm not going to get to listen to those shows? And if I have actually gone over that cap, it says right here in the report that the ISP will completely cut my connection off.
And let's be specific. You signed up and are paying for that, and then I'm paying to stream it to you. They're just hijacking the web, just like they're hijacking our entire banking system right now and literally feeding the Treasury and all of our currency and our tax money directly into themselves. I mean, folks, they're going for broke. They're taking it all down right now. Stay there. We are back live, and we were talking to one of the callers. who was discussing the fact that his ISP is restricting the amount of downloads, the amount of data he can take onto his computer. And again, these are pitiful amounts of bandwidth. His subscription way more than pays for it. But in most towns, even big cities, you'll have 2 or 3 providers you can go through for fast downloads, for fast connections. You can get your DSL, the phone company, your cable modem, maybe another choice. But it's really 3 or 4 companies all over North America, 3 or 4 in Europe, and they're all getting together and saying, we're not going to let you visit most websites. We're not going to let you download that much material. We're going to track what you do. Take Austin, Texas. When you type in a wrong website now, you don't get a computer error on your computer. You get a computer error on the Time Warner server. And they log everything you do. They track everything you do. The government's plugged right in. They watch it all. Your digital cable box watches everything you watch, creates a record of that for psychological makeup. And then they argue with you and say, we're not listening to any of your phone calls. And, of course, it turns out they're listening to everything. And it's criminal what they're doing. But they just don't care. Anything else, Brandon from New York?
I would just like these elite scumbags to know that there's a coalition of elite hackers out there in this world that aren't sensitized, that are about the freedom of information and everything that's going on in this world. We know all about your site proxy programs. We're just waiting to drop our viruses into your servers and destroy all that information right from the get-go so we can open the internet back up to where it should have been. Not paid for, free by the people, for all the information and everybody to get, just like it was in the beginning. And now there's Silicon Valley insiders that are out there working for us and not against us.
Well, that's right. As the tyranny gets worse and worse, as the people find out what's really happened. I mean, did you hear the poor guy in the first hour? And I believe him. He's going to send it all to me. He wanted to get a clerical job at the FBI, and they said, okay, we're going to hire you. And then they came and said, oh, sorry, we did more research on you. You visit Alex Jones's website. And the guy's like, well, how do you know this? Well, it's just amazing. I had, years ago, a lawyer involved exposing a bunch of corruption in Arkansas dealing with Bill Clinton murders from way back then and then tied into Oklahoma City. And then when he was in a lawsuit with the feds, there were his emails to me like a decade ago in the file because it was all being grabbed. I mean, folks, explain to people, though, what they're setting up and what they're doing. See, that's why the web's slowing down. They're placing all their hubs, all their snoopers in front of it, so you've got to go through their switchers. You want to explain that to them?
Yeah. Basically what happened is when Microsoft took over corporation, okay, they started designing computers so that you had access to the Internet through a phone line, okay? And that's how the Internet started out. Well, as everything came along and technology progressed, they started taking out these little things like your DOS running programs in your computer or your hyperlink terminals in your computer because phone lines were obsolete. And the reason that they were doing that was because they had no monitoring system through a phone line or a DSL. It was tracked just like back in the early 90s when people used to do things like phone phreaking and call for free, long distance. And when the government figured out that we could still get our information and it couldn't be monitored, they automatically switched everything over into an ISP-protected network. And when that happened, they started raping you of your information from the get-go. And I would say that was probably somewhere in the midst of 97 until current.
Absolutely, ladies and gentlemen, and they've got complete files on everybody. Now, don't let that intimidate you. They're the crooks. They're the dirty, peeping Toms, watching what you do, looking at what you do, in your bank accounts. They're the bad guys. They are the criminals. It's just disgusting.
You know, I would just like to let the American public know one thing. These people on the Internet that get blasted as hackers that are, you know, you see them crack an IDS security database and other such things, the American people need to know that these people are fighting for you and your freedoms. We're not the scumbag elite. We're trying to keep the information highways free so that you people can get this information. See, the general code of hacker elites usually work as, we won't do anything unless there's a probable cause for it. Well, now the government's giving us a probable cause to defend ourselves.
Well, we wouldn't have the internet today if it wasn't for the hackers defending it for the last 20 years. And we know a lot of the bad hacking that we've seen has led right back to the feds provocateuring, or every time they want to restrict free speech or pass a hate law, we've caught them putting child porn out, putting Nazi stuff out, going and hacking.
Anything tied to the U.S. Department of Justice, Homeland Security, any sort of the military branches, Air Force, Navy, anything.